In the misty hollows of sleepy villages across Europe and America, a terrifying figure has haunted the collective imagination for centuries. Picture this: the thunderous sound of hooves echoing through the darkness, a spectral rider charging through moonlit forests, and most chilling of all, the complete absence of a head upon the horseman's shoulders. This is not merely a campfire story or children's tale. This is the legend of the Headless Horseman, a phantom so feared that entire communities would barricade themselves indoors when darkness fell. The origins of this supernatural terror stretch back far beyond Washington Irving's famous tale of Sleepy Hollow. The earliest accounts of headless riders emerge from Celtic and Germanic folklore, where the boundaries between the living and the dead were believed to be dangerously thin. In these ancient cultures, the head was considered the seat of the soul, and a warrior who died by decapitation was condemned to wander eternally, searching for what was lost. The most widespread European variant tells of the Dullahan, a headless horseman from Irish mythology who rode a black horse through the countryside, carrying his severed head beneath one arm. This ghastly figure served as a harbinger of death, appearing before those whose time had come. Villages throughout Ireland would fall silent when the sound of phantom hooves approached, believing that anyone who dared to look upon the Dullahan would be struck blind, or worse, marked for death. But it was in the Hudson Valley of New York that the Headless Horseman truly captured global attention. The legend took root in the area around Sleepy Hollow during the Revolutionary War, when tales spread of a Hessian soldier who had lost his head to a cannonball during the Battle of White Plains. According to local folklore, this foreign mercenary was buried in the old Dutch church cemetery, but his spirit could find no rest. Night after night, he would rise from his grave, mount his phantom steed, and gallop through the surrounding countryside in a desperate search for his missing head. What made this particular legend so terrifying was not merely the supernatural element, but the very real historical context that gave it credence. The Revolutionary War had left the region scarred with battle sites and mass graves. The local population, predominantly Dutch settlers, already possessed a rich tradition of ghost stories and supernatural beliefs. When mysterious disappearances and unexplained deaths occurred in the area, the legend of the Headless Horseman provided a chilling explanation that seemed all too plausible. The psychological impact on local communities was profound and measurable. Historical records from the late 18th and early 19th centuries document how entire villages would modify their behavior based on fear of the phantom rider. Taverns would close early, refusing to serve travelers after sunset. Mail carriers demanded additional compensation for night routes through areas where the horseman had been sighted. Parents would gather their children indoors before dusk, and even adults would travel in groups, rather than venture alone through the supposedly haunted territories. This mass hysteria was fueled by a series of factors that created the perfect conditions for a legend to flourish. The isolated nature of rural communities meant that stories could spread and evolve without contradiction. The poor lighting and treacherous roads of the era made it easy for ordinary travelers to appear ghostly in the darkness. Most importantly, the legend provided a supernatural explanation for very real dangers. Highwaymen and bandits frequently operated along the lonely country roads, and attributing their crimes to a supernatural entity allowed communities to process their fear while maintaining some sense that the threat existed beyond human control. The terror was not limited to North America. Similar Headless Horseman legends emerged simultaneously across Europe, each adapted to local historical traumas. In Germany, the Wild Hunt featured spectral riders led by headless figures. In Britain, tales of phantom knights without heads were commonly reported near ancient battlefields. These parallel developments suggest that the archetype of the Headless Horseman tapped into something fundamental in human psychology, a primal fear of death and the unknown that transcended cultural boundaries. What transformed these local legends into enduring terror was their ability to evolve and adapt. As communities changed, so did their Headless Horseman. The Hessian soldier of Sleepy Hollow became a symbol not just of supernatural dread, but of foreign invasion and the costs of war. The Irish Dullahan represented the ancient powers that lurked beneath the surface of Christian civilization. Each version reflected the specific anxieties of its time and place, while maintaining the core elements that made the legend universally frightening. The Headless Horseman remains one of history's most successful supernatural legends, precisely because it emerged from genuine human fears and real historical events. These were not abstract monsters invented for entertainment, but explanations for the inexplicable that helped entire communities cope with trauma, loss, and the ever-present reality of death. In the end, perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Headless Horseman is not the phantom itself, but what its enduring popularity reveals about our eternal struggle to make sense of the darkness that surrounds us.